All right, so writing content or building a list and things like that. A lot of these marketing intensive activities, right? So once you figure it out, once you have a process that works, the next step is to actually hiring a team or hiring contract resources, on Upwork or places like that to actually delegate what you are doing right now, so that you can scale your efforts, right? So a lot of times we get stuck that we have to, as a business owner or a head of marketing, we feel like we have to keep on doing it all the time. But I'd like to hear from you on how you were able to effectively delegate these activities to an effective way of doing this over and over again.
Yeah, and I've been there too. Okay, I mean, I've been, you have to do everything really, and especially when you're smaller, that might be the case. Maybe you have limited resources. You're a startup. I get
Right.
that, and there's something I think good and right about that. I mean, you have to start where you are, wherever that is. But at some point, you will have to get out of that mode because you can't stay there. Otherwise, you won't be able to scale, and you'll just kind of be hitting the ceiling where you just can't seem to get above it.
Absolutely.
So for me, I mean, Upwork is a big part of that. And really, I would say it goes beyond Upwork for me, the writing resources. So I use some Upwork writers. I also use some US-based writers. And I've had great success in using my LinkedIn network to identify high quality long form writers. So that long form writing, which I'm a big believer in because I've seen the power of it and how it works with advanced SEO and how it can bring in lots of traffic from Google and convert those people into leads. Um, it takes a certain level of writing skill to write something that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 words long,
Right.
that is engaging, that people really want to read and consume and share and link to, right? So in most cases for long form, I will leverage my LinkedIn network, and now I've built kind of a network of writers that I rely on that are more used to my process. Now they've kind of got trained and they know what I'm looking for and what we need to do for deliver for those clients. Now, in some cases, a simpler long form article, if it's just a simple list post, I will use somebody on Upwork. Particularly in the Philippines, I really use exclusively people in the Philippines, and I've used quite a few of them for some of this simpler long form writing, or maybe they're just writing a landing page, and then certainly on the list building for influencer outreach, I use that quite a bit. And again, all people in the Philippines. The main thing there is I mean, you've got to vet them out and check them, right? And
Hmm.
but more of them are really good at speaking English well, because communication is important
Right.
when with influencer outreach list. So I use a little bit of my LinkedIn network, and again, I've leveraged that and kind of expanded that to not just people I'm directly connected with, but who do you know, all this stuff takes time, right? To build your process. So I think the main thing is to not get discouraged in the middle of that, because I've been discouraged at times. Like, it just seems so overwhelming, and there's so much to do. Um, just take it one step at a time. Wherever you are, take that next step and the next step, and eventually, you'll start making more progress, and that will become a bit of a flywheel, and you'll see more
Hmm.
momentum. But again,
Right.
even once you're at that level where you're delegating, you're doing Upwork and using people on LinkedIn, there's still an element of you got to keep moving forward and learning and growing, and finding ways to continue to scale those efforts.
Perfect. Perfect. So, uh, how much can I expect to pay someone for writing a long form content? Do you have any
Yeah,
standards? I know it is very relative.
it is.
Content is all about like it's creative art, right? Like different people will charge you in a different scale based on their experience and their influence. But still, like if you have to really be very ROI centric, you must have some kind of a budget set aside for content marketing efforts. So if you can walk me through, how you um, create a budget, and also when you hire someone, how do you set the terms?
Yeah. So for me, and other people approach this differently. With Upwork specifically, they're either on hourly basis or project basis. I
Mm.
always do project basis, and
Okay.
but I'm also very clear with my writers and contractors because I want to develop these relationships for the long term. I'm
Right.
not interested in just doing a project and saying it's going to be X amount of dollars and not giving them half of what they need to do, and then they realize later I've spent all this time and now I'm stuck with this project, right? So that does nobody any good. So setting clear expectations is a big part of that, and
Hmm.
I have a good relationship on Upwork. I'll say, hey, how did this project go? I know I like have a project, a fixed base, but like, was it more than you expected? And sometimes I'll say, okay, I'll throw you some extra money. I'll pay you a bonus on this project because, I gave pretty clear directions, but there was some things we just couldn't anticipate till we got into it, right? So having some flexibility with those people, again, think of the long-term relationship. Business success over time is not about just what can I get from you now and just kind of ripping people off really. um,
Right.
so as far as the budget goes, like a US writer, I have a flat fee. It's around $1,000 give or take on a long form piece of content. Again, they're following my process and um, and that structure that I know is successful for my clients. If it's Upwork, writer, it can be, I'd say, anywhere from $5 to maybe $10 an hour. It depends on the project, but I mean, it
Mhm.
could be if it's a simpler long form article, it'd be a few $100s. Might be $100, 150, 200. Just kind of depends. So
Okay.
um, again, I've kind of figured out where is the best fit for an Upwork writer versus a US writer, and and then obviously there's a lot of strategy behind my oversight to that as well.
Hmm.
Just because I pay the writer $1,000, that's not what I charge the client, because there's a lot of oversight, editing, and then making sure all those elements get into their
Right.
website CMS.
Absolutely. And do you have any process set aside, to set to kind of set clear expectations with them?
Yeah. So I have a Google Doc template that I have each of my writers follow in
Uh-huh.
terms of structuring it and using Google Docs to mark those things up within the document so that the person who's going to put it into the website, make sure they carry over all those technical elements. I have other Google Docs with instructions in terms of how to approach the process. And then some of it is feedback, that I've given them the document. I also might have a client document specific like to brand personality and tone and voice and those sorts of things that we need to make sure that the writing falls in line with that. Again, it might seem like that's a lot to do all that, but to do this effectively at scale, you've got to have those clear expectations and good communication around those,
Right.
what you need accomplished.
So one thing which we all take very lightly is the review and feedback process,
Yeah.
isn't it? So the content is so personal, like you really, it's nearly impossible to get it right or get it right as per my standards, right? Our standards. So it's very important that we actually have a review and a feedback mechanism. So it gets incrementally better. It can get incrementally better with every new assignment that you've given to your, team. So do you follow any feedback or review or debrief process
Yeah,
with
you
your
brought
team?
up a really good point, RK, because for me, going back to that long-term relationship with writers, I want them to learn my process. I need good writers, right? It has to start with a good writer first. You got to be able to write persuasively and engaging way.
Hmm.
But I want to develop a long-term relationship with them so they learn my process and they could do this, multiple times for me for different clients. Um, so as far as that process for feedback, to me, that's why Google Docs is perfect because I can leave comments, I can be in suggesting mode, I can leave all those there, and then oftentimes we'll need to have a call to talk through some of those. make sure they understand what I'm trying to communicate. And again, it all goes back to good communication. So many times having a dialogue as opposed to just comments in a document or an
Mhm.
email. You got to start there. I mean, Google Docs is a great place to leave those comments and leave that feedback and collaborate in a live situation there, as opposed to Microsoft Word, which is not as easy to
Right.
collaborate. You can leave comments, but it's not like you're resolving comments and accepting and rejecting changes right in the same document. So um, it's a bit of both. It's a bit of the technology, and then you still have to have the human element, the dialogue,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
discussion to debrief on that. And again, that all goes back to earning trust and respect. Just because I'm paying a writer, to do this article doesn't mean I should treat them poorly. I mean, they should be somebody that I'm looking to build a relationship with and make sure I take the time to give
Hmm.
them what they need to be successful, um, not just the money that I'm paying them to do that job.
Right. Great, great, great. This has been very, very useful. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Miles, for sharing such great information, on this episode.
You're
Uh,
very
if
welcome.
my audience wants to get in touch with you, what would be the best way?
So the marketing agency I work for, Imaginasium, we've got some great content there. We do have a piece of long form content on content marketing strategy. So if you want to, the bit.ly will be in the show notes, but it's bit.ly/long form content. If you want to get to that article, there's also another email opt-in ebook if you want to get that one that's related to content marketing on that article there as well. I also have a personal site, milesanthonysmith.com, and I'm an author as well as a digital marketer. So I write on the topics of leadership and career advice. So if you're interested in that, go to my website. There's places where you can opt in for various ebooks and all kinds of free content, in addition to the long form blog content that I have on my site. So hope that you find that successful. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Miles Anthony Smith is my full name. So if you look me up under that on LinkedIn, you can find me there as well.
Awesome, awesome, great. I'm going to leave all the links on the show notes for this episode. Thanks again, Miles. We had a really great conversation, and I look forward to meeting you soon.
Thank you, RK. Me as well.
Yeah, thank you.